This is my first time to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and which explains some of my problems. I really appreciate Jeff there. I didn't know he was going to come up on the stage, but I was pleased to be able to help him get up here. You may have, when you were watching that video, you probably noticed that on occasion I wore a toque and an extra overcoat and a few other things. And that's because my mother always told me that you take it with you and you can take it off if it's too hot, but you can't put it on if it's at home. The other thing that you probably noticed, I was an innovator. I generally went up into the spotter's box. And a lot of people thought that I did that because it gave me an extra edge in the game. Actually, the reason I did that is I figured out early in my career, which began in Winnipeg, that if you're on the sideline, you could get hurt. And if you're in the box, you're never cold. Both of those things make you a better coach. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the 2012 Hall of Fame, and it's a special group. I've really enjoyed the last couple of days, and it's really been an honor to be included with this particular group. I received a call, as everybody did, to let them know that they'd been selected for the Hall of Fame. I was, first of all, very excited and very surprised, but I maintained my cool, and I thanked the commissioner who called, Mark Cohan, and hung up and sat down before I fell down. My first experience, CFL experience, I was a Rough Rider fan from probably 8 years old on. But when I was 12 years old, my loyalty paid off, and I was selected to help a friend look after the Saskatchewan Rough Rider mascot, a goat. He led the goat, and I came behind, and I was in charge of cleanup. The other thing that's I guess important in my career is my first opportunity to coach and to teach was in Winnipeg at Sister High School, and it was 54 years ago. And I learned a lot that year in football and teaching, and one of the things I learned as far as football is concerned is that you don't prejudge the players that come out for the team and select them on size or something like that. And the reason I came to this conclusion was on the second day of practice. This boy came out. He was late. He wasn't there the first day because he was working on the farm. And he asked if he could try out for the team. And I looked at him, and in my wisdom and my vast coaching experience of 2 days, I explained to him that I thought he was a little small and he could get injured. He was probably 120 and he was 5 foot nothing. So he left. And on the next day, he came back out and he asked me the same questions, and I told him exactly the same answer, and that I was really concerned about his health, and it was too late to try out. Now it was already the third day of practice. So he left. On the fourth day, he came back, asked me the same thing, and I told him the same thing. After practice, I went into the locker room at Sister High School, which happened to be in the basement. There was one light bulb, and the basement floor was 2 feet below the Winnipeg water table. So it was always a little damp. And out of the darkness, somebody grabbed me and lifted me up and did this airplane spin. And then I heard this squeaky little voice say, "I'm not too small, and I'm strong enough to play football." And I said, "You're darn right, put me down, come out to practice tomorrow." So at that time, it was the year that the Russians put up the first spaceship, and it was a small one, and it was expected to fail, and the media called it Sputnik. And I had this player, who I had chosen because of my vast knowledge in football, who was too small to play and expected to fail, so we called him Sputnik. And Sputnik played every game as a defensive end. It turned out he was very quick, he was very strong, he was very agile, and he was too small to block. And that's why he played every game. And that's when I learned that don't prejudge the players. Let them perform and find out what they can do. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the special occasion that I've had this evening, or had in the last couple of days, and the people that are here to share with my family and I. First of all, from the University of Calgary, Dr. Elizabeth Cannon, who is the president of the university and has been very supportive of the football program, very supportive of my particular place in it. Ron Wotilla, who is the athletic director at the University of Calgary. Dennis Kadatz, who was the first football coach at the University of Calgary, and also the athletic director. And he was the individual who selected or gave me the opportunity to coach at the university level. And I'd like to pay particular attention to the Dinosaur Fifth Quarter, which is a group of alumni who have worked very hard and tirelessly to build the program and support the program. And particularly over the last 4 years, their efforts are paying off and the program is back on a strong footing. I'd also like to recognize the support that the program and amateur football in Calgary receives from the Calgary Stampeders. I went to Calgary in 1964 and had a great relationship with the Stampeders starting in 1964 and until I retired. And also pay particular attention to Stan Schwartz, who is a real friend of amateur football and a real friend of the University of Calgary. Coaching success depends on a team approach. And we used to talk about team, together, everyone achieves more. I was very fortunate to have a very strong team every year that I coached football. The team that I had was my family to begin with. My wife Liz we were married, and that's when my football program began. And she was there pretty well for every game that I ever was involved in. She was really took care of the family when our two daughters came along, Karen and Heather. And she was the one who took them to the swimming meets and to the games, etc. And as any coach knows, that without a strong family and without strong support from your wife or your spouse, you cannot coach for very long. And so from that perspective, I was very, very fortunate. I'd also like to acknowledge my brother John, who was also there whenever we had important games. He once flew from London for a Vanier Cup game on the Concorde. It was a quick trip in and a quick trip out. It didn't last much more than the game, but he was always at those games. I'd like to recognize the committed assistant coaches that I had beginning at Sister High School with Frankie Bryan and Mike Kachmar. They were the first two coaches, and many of you have coached different sports, and in football you know that you need a lot of assistance, and they've got to be dedicated. And I was very fortunate over all those years to have those kinds of assistant coaches. The players, of course, also played a big part in the success of our teams. They were prepared to do what had to be done. They worked very, very hard to be the best that they could be, and that was took a total commitment. I accept this recognition and this honor on behalf of all those assistant coaches and all those players and all the other people and my family who really made the situation such that we could be successful. I treasure the experiences and the memories and the friendships that I was able to develop as a coach and as a teacher over many years. I was a teacher first, and I coached for 37 years, almost as long as Damon played in the CFL. And like Damon, I loved every minute of it. In closing, I would like to thank the Hall of Fame committee, and particularly Mark and Sarah, who made our experience over the last 4 days extraordinary and one that we will never forget and cherish for the remaining part of our life. Thank you very much for your attention.